Joe Biden was on the attack on the caucus trail in Iowa, meanwhile, today, after the Trump defence team running his impeachment took aim at the former Vice President's son. Joining us live from Marion, Iowa, where Joe Biden just wrapped up a town hall, is Sky News political reporter Annalise Nielsen. Annalise, he took a lot of questions, an hour's worth for the locals. How was he? What did they want to know as well?
Well, they were really asking about a number of different issues that are going to come up when it comes to deciding who to support for the Democratic candidate. There were quite a few questions about climate change. There were some questions from some younger members of the audience, including what to do with all those ageing baby boomers, which is going to be a key issue for America. But hanging over this really was this Hunter Biden issue. It came up in the defense for President Trump in the impeachment hearings today. It's all about Hunter Biden, that's Joe Biden's son, employment in this company in Ukraine, Burisma. The allegation being that Joe Biden, as vice president, was pressuring the sacking of the prosecutor in Ukraine to then try and take the pressure off of Burisma, the company that hired Hunter Biden. Now, that came up as being a defense for President Trump. He was saying that it's a legitimate thing to be wanting to look into the inter-operations of these Ukrainian companies and corruption if they are looking at handing over aid money. So that really heated up, and we saw Joe Biden really get fired up here in the town hall meeting when talking about Donald Trump.
I do not believe we're the dark, angry nation Donald tweets about every morning. I don't believe that we're a nation that puts kids in cages and thinks it's okay. I don't believe we're a nation that embraces white supremacists and hate groups. We do not do that. And I don't believe we're a nation that bows down to Vladimir Putin, for God's sake.
Now, the criticism of Donald Trump went over pretty well, as you'd imagine, with a Democratic crowd. It was interesting to see the comparison yesterday. Elizabeth Warren barely mentioned Donald Trump or any of her competitors. She's obviously picking a more positive approach. But these are questions that are dogging Joe Biden. We did catch up with him as he was heading onto his bus, and he was a bit incredulous about the whole thing.
The president's defense team brought up your son and his work with Burisma. They said it raised eyebrows the world over.
Do you have any? Thanks so much, guys.
Are you kidding me?
Are you concerned that this will hurt your campaign here in Iowa?
He didn't seem to love talking to the media on the way onto the bus there. Annalise, you've been out, though, talking to the people. How did they receive Joe Biden's visit and the questions he answered?
Well, the interesting thing to remember with these crowds is they are all Democrats, but many of them are deciding which one they're going to throw their support behind. In those key caucuses next week, the thing that they often say is that whose corner are they going to stand in? Because it literally is what happens here in Iowa. They go into a big caucus room and stand in the corner of whoever they're going to support. And so I caught up with a few of the people in the room. They generally did accept Joe Biden and were pretty excited for him.
He can hit the ground running. He's got the most experience. He's a centrist, which will hopefully bring the country somewhat back together. It's just his experience far exceeds. We have great candidates, but he's the best.
Rather than going and spending trillions of dollars to dump all this and start over again, no, he's not going to do that. He wants to stick with Obamacare and make it better.
He knows his way around the White House and Washington. So he's been there, done that, so he knows how to connect and get things done. He has a calm demeanor, and he's not full of himself.
But there's a lot of candidates in the field. There's about 6 that are really leading the way, and it has really impacted the campaigns of some of the real front runners like Elizabeth Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders. They've both been held up in Washington for these impeachment hearings, and the same as Amy Klobuchar. Now, she is a lesser-known candidate, but could be one of those ones that comes out of the left field and gets ahead in Iowa. That's what it's really famous for. People kind of taking the lead by being on the ground here, talking to voters. In the last year, there's been 3,000 Democratic candidate events in Iowa. These people are very well versed in all the issues, and we'll find out who they're going to throw their support behind next Monday.
Well versed, or maybe some of them sick of it. Call me a cynic, Annalise, in a very non-scientific way. Can you compare? You were at Elizabeth Warren, of course, early in the week, and now Joe Biden. What comparisons would you draw between the two events?
Well, the interesting thing is they're both being criticised for being on the older end of things. I think Joe Biden's 77 and Elizabeth Warren's not far off that. It does seem like Joe Biden has, this isn't new, but he's always been thought of as maybe being not the sharpest with responses. We did hear him trip up a few times this evening. He was trying to remember some contaminants when he was talking about soil in China. I couldn't think of the word. He also got flipped around saying that healthcare should be a privilege, not a right, and I think it meant it the other way around. But it's completely understandable when you're in a field like this. Elizabeth Warren, however, she really did seem so fired up yesterday, really sprightly and energetic, and she was quite intense when we did the press call, that she was really quite taking all those questions being fired at her from the journalists. But how that all plays out in the general public is very different. A lot of people see Joe Biden as being a statesman, as having the gravitas of someone who knows the job, and I've heard that from quite a few people, that, oh, Joe Biden's done it before, he can do it again. Whereas Elizabeth Warren could be seen as more of a volatile commodity, especially when a lot of her policies really are coming out of left field. She wants to cancel $1.6 trillion in student debt like that overnight by executive order. That's got a lot of people really fired up.
And just finally, where's next on the great US adventure, Annalise, while I keep the home fires burning here for us?
Well, heading off to just somewhere out of Iowa City, we're trying to catch up with Pete Buttigieg. He's a really interesting candidate. He's younger, 36. He's seen as maybe less experienced, but he speaks like 7 languages. He served in the military, and he's just been the mayor of South Bend for years, where he's got a real following. But he's also a gay man. It hasn't played well with many conservatives in America, and it's something where he says it's a strength. He's doing his authentic self. He has a very supportive husband, but it's a very conservative country here, as you know, and so that might not play out. I've had a few voters tell me privately that they can't see Mr. and Mr. in the White House, and so that's something that he's going to have to address, especially with voters right in the middle here where we are. So it's not the easiest campaign trail by any stretch, but he does seem to be getting a lot of support, a lot of money, which is really important. And a lot of people are out here. We've seen a lot of Pete Buttigieg signs up in the front yards of many homes, and so he could be that left field contender that just pulls ahead out of nowhere.
Who knows? Great to get your insights as you take the temperature over there, the US temperature, of course. We know it's cold otherwise. I think I can see snow there. We'll let you get indoors,
It's less than freezing,
Annalise.
yeah.
Thank you.